I never believed in mirrors until the one in my bathroom started lying to me. It was 2:17 a.m. on a Tuesday, the kind of hour where the world feels like it's holding its breath. And I stumbled in, bleary-eyed from another nightmare I couldn't quite recall. The fluorescent light buzzed like a dying insect as I splashed water on my face. But when I looked up, my reflection didn't match. Its lips curled into a smile, slow, deliberate, teeth gleaming like polished bone, while mine hung slack, a mask of exhaustion. I blinked, convinced it was the sleep deprivation from my dead-end job, the endless cycle of fluorescent hell at the call center where voices scream through the line like ghosts demanding their due. But the smile lingered, widening just a fraction, as if it knew something I didn't. I smashed the mirror that night with the heel of my hand, shards embedding in my palm like accusations, blood dripping into the sink in rhythmic plops that echoed the tick of the clock downstairs. By morning, the pieces had reformed on the floor, seamless as new, reflecting not my bandaged hand but fingers that twitched independently, beckoning me closer. That was 3 weeks ago, and the fractures have only deepened since. My name is Elias Crowe, 32 years old, living in a crumbling apartment building on the edge of Eldridge Hollow, a forgotten mill town where the river runs black with forgotten sins and the air tastes of rust and regret. The building, a sagging relic called Hawthorne Arms, creaks like it's alive, whispering through the vents at night. Mrs. Hargrove in 4B swears it's the ghosts of the mill workers, their lungs clogged with cotton dust. But I chalked it up to her dementia until the mirrors started multiplying. Not in the literal sense, no sudden infestation of antique glass, but in the way every reflective surface began to warp my image, subtle at first, like a funhouse trick gone wrong. The toaster's chrome edge caught my eye over burnt toast, showing eyes that weren't mine. Pupils dilated to black pits, irises flecked with something metallic, like oil slicks on water. I laughed it off then, a nervous bark that echoed too loudly in my empty kitchen, but the unease settled in my gut like cold lead. Work became a reprieve, or so I told myself. The call center was a fluorescent purgatory, rows of cubicles under humming lights that never quite warmed the space. My headset was my lifeline, ferrying complaints from faceless strangers. Your service is shit, they'd hiss, voices distorted by static, and I'd murmur apologies scripted on a laminated card, my own voice feeling borrowed. But on the 4th day after the bathroom incident, during a lull between calls, I caught my reflection in the darkened monitor of the computer next to mine. Empty desk, empty screen, yet there it was. Me, leaning forward, breath fogging the glass from the inside out. I jerked back, heart slamming against my ribs like a trapped bird, and glanced around. No one noticed. Tim from accounting was picking his nose 2 cubicles over, and Sarah was scrolling TikTok, her laughter a brittle shield against the monotony. I wiped the screen with my sleeve, but the smudge remained, a faint outline of lips pressed against it, mouthing words I couldn't hear. Elias, I whispered to myself, testing the name, but the reflection didn't respond. Not yet. By evening, the city lights blurred into smears as I drove home, the radio crackling with a storm warning that never quite materialized. Eldridge Hollow's streets were veins of cracked asphalt, lined with boarded-up shops and the occasional flicker of a porch light like dying embers. I pulled into the Hawthorne's lot, gravel crunching under tires worn thin as my patience, and that's when I noticed the new tenant. A moving truck idled in the spot next to mine, its engine a low growl, and a figure emerged from the shadows of the cab. Tall, lean, dressed in a coat too heavy for the muggy autumn air. He turned, and for a split second, under the sodium lamp's orange haze, his face was mine. Not a twin, not a relative, but me. The same crooked nose from a childhood brawl, the same scar above my left eyebrow from a bar fight I regretted. He nodded, a mirror of my habitual tic, and vanished into the building before I could call out. I sat there, engine idling, sweat prickling my scalp despite the chill seeping through the vents. Coincidence, I reasoned. Eldridge was small, faces recycled like bad dreams. But as I climbed the stairs to my 3rd-floor unit, footsteps echoed behind me, syncing perfectly with my own, stopping only when I fumbled with my keys. Inside, the apartment smelled of stale coffee and something sharper, like ozone after lightning. I bolted the door, double-checked the chain, and poured a tumbler of bourbon that burned going down but did nothing for the tremor in my hands. The living room mirror, a thrift store find with a chipped gilt frame, hung crooked on the wall opposite the couch, a sentinel I'd always ignored. Tonight I couldn't. I approached it sideways, like a man circling a snake, and stared. My reflection stared back, but its posture was off. Shoulders hunched in a way mine weren't, head tilted at an angle that screamed curiosity rather than caution. "What the fuck are you?" I muttered, and the lips moved in sync. But the eyes, God, the eyes, held a gleam of amusement, a predator sizing up wounded prey. I reached out, finger tracing the glass, and felt a warmth radiate back, not from the room's drafty heat but from within the surface, pulsing like a heartbeat. "Pull away," my mind screamed, but my hand pressed flat, and for an instant the barrier thinned. Skin met skin, or what felt like skin, cool and clammy, and a whisper slithered through. "Home." I yanked back, stumbling into the coffee table, the tumbler shattering on the floor in a spray of amber shards. Sleep evaded me that night, the bed a tangle of sweat-damp sheets. Dreams came in fragments, the mill's looms clacking like jaws, cotton fibers weaving into nooses that tightened around my throat. My mother's face pale and accusing from the day she left when I was 8, her reflection in the rearview mirror fracturing as the car pulled away. I woke gasping at dawn, the sky outside a bruised purple, and checked the bathroom mirror first thing. Intact, innocent, showing only my haggard face with bags like bruises under my eyes. Relief washed over me, thin as fog, until I brushed my teeth and caught the anomaly. My gums, pink and healthy in reality, appeared receding in the glass, teeth loosening like milk ones in a child's mouth, blood welling in pinpricks. I spat, watched the red swirl down the drain, but the reflection swallowed it whole, lips smacking in satisfaction. Work called then, a lifeline I clung to, but the drive was a blur of paranoia, every passing car a potential watcher, every pedestrian a shadow of myself. The new tenant's name was Elias Crowe, or so the lobby mailbox announced when I checked on my lunch break, pilfering glances like a thief. Same last name, same floor, 2C, directly below mine. I knocked that evening, heart thudding a staccato rhythm, armed with a six-pack as camouflage. The door opened after a long pause, and there he stood. Me, down to the faded Led Zeppelin tee I'd worn yesterday, now stretched across his frame like a second skin. "Heard you moved in," I said, voice cracking on the words, thrusting the beer forward. He smiled, that same goddamn smile from the mirror, and stepped aside. "Elias, right? Come in, brother." The apartment was a mirror of mine, same peeling wallpaper the color of jaundice, same threadbare carpet stained with ghosts of spilled lies. We drank in silence at first, the can sweating condensation onto the formisa table, until he leaned forward, eyes locking mine. "You look like you've seen a ghost," he said, and I nearly choked on the foam. Or maybe. Something worse. His laugh was mine, a low rumble that used to charm girls in college, but here it slithered like smoke. He talked then in a voice that echoed my own inflections about the mill. How it called to him, the way the river sang lullabies of drowned workers, their bones grinding in the current like millstones. "They say Hawthorne Arms was built on the site," he murmured, tracing a finger along the table's edge, leaving a streak that glistened wetly. "The mirrors? They're doors." Not to other rooms, but to the hollow inside. I nodded, feigning interest, but my skin crawled, every hair standing on end as if electricity hummed in the air. When I glanced at the kitchen window, my reflection stared back from the darkened pane. Not his, not mine, but both, superimposed, faces merging in a grotesque kiss. I left abruptly, mumbling excuses about an early shift, but as I climbed the stairs, his footsteps followed again, a perfect echo that paused at his door only to resume softly, as if climbing invisible rungs to mine. That night, the whispers started in earnest. Not from the vents, but from the walls themselves, muffled voices like radio static tuned to a forbidden frequency, murmuring names. Elias, Elias, Elias. I stuffed towels under the door, plugged my ears with wax from half-melted candles, but they seeped in, insidious as damp rot. By midnight I was pacing, the bourbon bottle empty and accusatory on the counter, when the living room mirror rippled. Not a crack, but a wave like water disturbed by a stone. My reflection stepped forward, glass bulging around its form, and pressed palms against the inside, veins bulging blue-black under translucent skin. "Let me out," it mouthed, the words syncing with the whispers, a chorus now swelling to a chant. I backed away, tripping over the couch, and grabbed the lamp, brass heavy as a weapon. The bulb shattered against the frame, sparks dancing like fireflies, and the mirror went dark, reflection vanishing into inky void. But in the silence that followed, a new sound, scratching, faint at first from behind the plaster. Fingernails on wood, deliberate, testing for weakness. Morning brought no solace. The call center felt alien, cubicles closing in like coffin lids, and during a call, a woman sobbing about a billing error. My monitor flickered to life unbidden. Not the desktop, but a feed. Me from last night huddled on the floor, lamp shards glinting around me like teeth. The woman on the line droned on, oblivious, but I froze, headset slipping as the video me looked up, straight into the camera, and winked. "Sir, are you there?" The woman snapped and I stammered yes, slamming the mute button, but the screen looped, wink, huddle, wink, the scratching sound bleeding through the speakers like an afterthought. Tim glanced over, brow furrowed. "You okay, man? Looked like you saw your own ghost." I fled to the bathroom then, the office one with its institutional tiles and single bulb swinging like a noose. The mirror there was merciless, my face halved, one side normal, the other melting, cheeks sagging like wax under flame, I drooping in a perpetual leer. I punched it, knuckles splitting on impact, but the glass held, my blood blooming across it in fractal patterns that reformed into letters. Join us. The drive home was a gauntlet of shadows. Every headlight a glare from accusatory eyes. The Eldridge Hollow seemed to pulse, buildings leaning in as if to whisper secrets, the river's murmur a guttural laugh. I avoided the lobby, taking the fire escape up the rusted exterior, feet slipping on dew-slick metal. My door hung ajar, chain dangling, severed like a broken promise, and inside chaos. Drawers yanked open, clothes strewn like entrails. The bourbon bottle upright on the table, full again, label pristine. And the mirror, oh God, the mirror, stood not on the wall but in the center of the room, freestanding, frame elongated like stretched bones. It faced away, but as I circled, breath shallow, the back was smooth, featureless, absorbing light like a black hole. From the front it showed not the apartment but a cavernous space. Looms silent and spectral, cotton wisps floating like ectoplasm, figures hunched at stations, their faces obscured by dust masks that writhed like living things. In the center, two men stood back to back. Me and him, Elias and Elias, hands clasped behind, heads bowed in ritual. I didn't scream then. Terror had hollowed me out, leaving only a shell that moved on autopilot. I approached the glass, drawn by the pull in my marrow, and placed my palms against it. Warm again, throbbing, and this time the barrier gave, a suction, wet and yielding, pulling my fingers through up to the wrist. Pain lanced, not sharp but deep, like roots burrowing into soil, and I saw them. Veins threading from my arm into the surface, blue lines pulsing with something darker, viscous as tar. Home, the whisper returned, plural now, a multitude sighing in unison. I yanked free, skin sloughing off in strips that writhed on the floor like worms, and bolted for the door. Down the stairs, two at a time, bursting into the lobby where Mrs. Hargrove sat in her rocker, knitting needles clicking like castanets. "The Hollow takes what's owed," she croaked, eyes milky but knowing. "Mill built them in doubles to work the night shift eternal. Yours came early, didn't it?" Outside, the night air clawed at my raw hands, the moving truck still parked like a sentinel. No sign of him, but the river called, its banks slick with mud that sucked at my shoes as I stumbled toward it, drawn by the chant now echoing in my skull. The water was black glass, reflecting the moon in shattered pieces, and as I knelt, peering in, the face that stared back was whole, smiling, complete, beckoning with fingers that weren't mine. I plunged my arms in, up to the elbows, searching for the lie, but the current gripped, pulling me under in a rush of icy silk. Lungs burning, I thrashed, but visions assailed. The mill alive, looms weaving flesh into thread, workers peeling off masks to reveal faces like mine, layered infinite, a chorus of Elias's grinding bone to dust. One broke free, swimming up through the murk. My tenant, coat billowing like wings, and locked eyes with me. Mouth opening in a silent scream that matched my own. I surfaced gasping, mud-caked and shivering on the opposite bank, the hawthorn arms a distant silhouette against the storm clouds that finally unleashed their fury. Rain lashed like accusations, washing the blood from my hands, but the strips of skin clung to my pockets, wriggling faintly. Limping back across the footbridge, I passed the truck, cab empty but for a single item on the seat, my keys, looped on a fob engraved Elias Crowe. The door to 3B, my door, yielded without resistance, and inside the apartment was pristine, mirror back on the wall, reflection waiting with open arms. I collapsed onto the couch, exhaustion claiming me in waves, and dreamed of doubles, an army of me's marching through the walls, each step a splinter in reality's frame. Days blurred into a fever haze. Work fired me via email. Unexcused absences, erratic behavior, but the severance check arrived in the mail, signed in my looping script. Food appeared in the fridge. Loaves of bread that molded overnight into shapes like screaming faces, milk that curdled to blood-red curds. The tenant below knocked once, a courtesy rap, but when I answered, the hallway stretched infinite, doors lining it like teeth in a maw, each numbered 3B. We should talk, he called from the void, voice multiplying, and I slammed the door, barricading it with the couch that now felt too light, too insubstantial. The scratching returned that night, not from the walls, but from within. Skittering like rats with human intent. I pried one up with a butter knife, splinters biting my palms, and revealed not wood but glass, a pane looking down into 2C. Him pacing. But his reflection was me, trapped and clawing upward, nails bloody stubs. Our eyes met through the layers. Mine frantic, his serene, and he mouthed soon. I replaced the board, hammering it down with fists that bruised purple. But the hollow echoed the blows back, a mockery of my efforts. By week's end, the town noticed. Whispers in the corner store. Crows gone hollow-eyed, the clerk muttered to a regular, their gazes sliding off me like oil. Mrs. Hargrove left a parcel at my door. Knitting, a scarf patterned with mirrors, each stitch a tiny fracture. I burned it in the sink, flames dancing blue, and watched my shadow on the ceiling elongate, splitting into duplicates that capered independent. Sleep was surrender now, dreams bleeding into waking. The river swelling to flood the streets, carrying bodies with my face bloated and serene, washing up on doorsteps like offerings. One dawn, as the sun clawed through grimy curtains, I woke to silence. A mercy, or so I thought. The mirror showed only emptiness, a void where I should be, and panic surged anew. I dressed in layers, coat buttoned to the throat, and descended to the lobby, determined to leave Eldridge forever. But the mailboxes yawned open, each slot stuffed with photos. Me, at every age, poses identical, smiling that damned smile. The front door stuck, chain invisible but taut, and as I rattled it, a voice from behind. Going somewhere. Elias? He stood at the base of the stairs, coat dripping river water, and extended a hand. Identical to mine down to the raw knuckles. We're family here. The hollow needs us both. I ran then. Not out but up, stairs twisting into a spiral that deposited me back at 3B. The apartment had changed. Furniture rearranged into a circle around the mirror, now cracked in a spiderweb that pulsed with inner light. In its depths, the mill loomed, workers rising as one, faces peeling to reveal the raw muscle beneath, mouths gaping in silent pleas. My double entered behind me, door clicking shut like a trap, and we faced each other across the glass divide. "It's easier if you don't fight," he said, and his words layered over mine, a duet of resignation. I lunged, but the floor tilted, sucking me toward the mirror, reflection reaching through to clasp my shoulders, cold hands, but mine, gripping with familial betrayal. The merge was agony distilled. Skin splitting like overripe fruit, bones grinding in symphony, thoughts fracturing into echoes. I felt him pour in, memories not mine but familiar. The mill's first shift in 1892, lungs filling with dust that tasted of iron. My mother's abandonment, her reflection shattering in the mirror as she drove away, leaving a hollow child. We became we, Elias plural, the tenant dissolving into my pores like ink and water. The mirror sealed seamless, showing a single face, mine ours, smiling wide, teeth filed to points. Now I sit in the living room, knitting under Mrs. Hargrove's watchful eye, needles clicking secrets into yarn. The whispers are companions, the scratching a lullaby from below. Eldridge Hollow breathes with us, mirrors multiplying in every pane, every puddle, every eye that dares look too long. And tonight, when the new tenant arrives, tall, lean, coat too heavy for the air, I'll welcome him home, with a smile that's all teeth and a reflection that never lies.